Hello, and welcome to my channel. I was weighing which political clown show deserved the spotlight when suddenly, boom, Jasmine Crockett went off on Donald Trump, unleashing a fiery takedown that stole everyone's attention instantly.
What is your reaction to what he is saying?
It is absolutely ridiculous that I live rent-free in his mind in a time in which the American people are suffering. He absolutely consistently buys into this idea, or continues to put it out there, that women of color somehow are low IQ. Let me be clear. I have a lot more education than he does. This is just what it is, degree-wise. I have earned my degrees. My daddy didn't have to make a phone call to get me into anything because that wasn't a possibility, okay? So we can stop playing games as if I am somehow lesser than.
This wasn't just a jab or some throwaway clapback. It was a full-scale demolition. I actually caught myself thinking, hold up, how did I almost miss this? Normally, Trump's the one sucking up all the oxygen, tossing out nicknames like a wannabe WWE performer. But then Crockett marched straight into the ring and basically said, "Step aside, let me demonstrate what a real takedown looks like." And suddenly, the noise wasn't his anymore. It was hers, and it was louder.
Yes, you were the first person I wanted to hear his opinion on this, because coming from Texas, are you concerned about that Republican effort to redraw those congressional lines? And if you are, which I'm assuming you are, what can you do about it?
Yeah, so first of all, we've got to educate people. So thank you for having the conversation. This is bigger than just Texas. You know, a lot of people kind of look at this and be like, well, this is a Texas problem. No, it's an all of us problem. It's the entire country as well as the world that needs to be concerned. Because first of all, when we think about the fact that this administration has talked a lot about a third term, whoever controls the House is going to be the person who has to certify the election. So, you know, these guys don't play by any rules. They break everything. And right now, they are trying to not only rig the midterms, but potentially rig the next election by making sure that we have more of these complacent, complicit folk continuing to run the House, because honestly, they just do whatever he tells them to do.
I had to stop, rewind, and replay. You ever watch something so sharp, so perfectly delivered, it feels like it had to be scripted? That's exactly the vibe. Trump, the guy who's made political chaos his side hustle, suddenly wasn't the one dictating the tempo. Instead, he was catching precision shots, each one landing clean, leaving the room buzzing like everyone had just witnessed a heavyweight knockout.
Yeah, I mean, clearly the White House, they are the hostile actors, whether we're talking about the Epstein files and them not coming out, or whether we're talking about him unlawfully going into various minority-controlled cities. And honestly, the list goes on. So we know where the hostility is coming from. I will have to tell you that I respect Thomas Massie. Clearly, we don't agree on a lot, but where we can find agreement, we do. And the reason that I respect him is because he always shows you who he is. He is what I would consider to be a traditional conservative. He believes in transparency. He doesn't believe in whatever Trump tells him to believe. He believes in things like fiscal conservatism. He knows who he is, and he never backs down. And to have this administration try to play with us and act like the DOJ is complying with oversight, to be clear, we were able to secure a subpoena to get those records from the Department of Justice within the Oversight Committee. And guess what? We still don't have them, right? Like, they gave us an itty bitty amount. They gave us maybe 3% of the documentation. And they know that they have Comer under their thumb and that Comer won't necessarily press.
I've watched Trump escape from situations that would sink any other politician. He's like a political Teflon. Nothing sticks. Scandals, lawsuits, indictments, failed businesses, pick one, and he just shrugs it off. Half the time, he makes it worse for himself and somehow comes out more popular, like the time he called Jasmine a low IQ person. Funny, right?
I want to ask you about something that President Trump posted on social media today. He said the Smithsonian is out of control, where everything discussed is how horrible our country is, how bad slavery was, and how unaccomplished the downtrodden have been. Nothing about success, nothing about brightness, nothing about the future. We are not going to allow this to happen, and I have instructed my attorneys to go through the museums and start the exact same process that has been done with colleges and universities. What is your response to that?
You know, it is funny. My question to the president would be, would you say the same thing as it relates to the Holocaust? And the Holocaust did not take place in the United States. It seems like there are certain people specifically on that side that anytime we want to discuss what has taken place as it relates to Black people and how they took our labor, how they took our lives, how they ruined families, they never want the truth to come out because it hurts their feelings. It's kind of like when we decide to call a racist, such as these racist maps that are going through Texas. They always are upset when you just call them for what they are.
But Crockett came in differently. She didn't just point at the circus tent and say, "Look at the clown." She went line by line, piece by piece, breaking him down. She didn't rely on gimmicks. She didn't rely on dramatic pauses. She relied on facts delivered with the kind of energy that makes people sit up and go, like, "Is this real?"
Him to absolve himself of trying to help out when I know that the real shtick here is that he knows, or he's at least been informed, that that actually may be a really high bar to meet, and that's what he wanted to do.
What are your Republican colleagues telling you, whether it's OTR or even just flat out discussing this? And do you think there will be a vote next week whether or not to require these grand jury documents to be released?
I absolutely think that they are going to run away with this as quickly as possible. We saw a number of Republicans that just skipped a previous vote this week. So I don't anticipate that we will get to any resolution on this. I think that they want to, again, straddle the fence. They want to show that they are loyal to this, I don't even know what to call him. I've called him so many things. But this wannabe Hitler, for sure.
Trump pulled his signature stunt. You know the play. He tossed out a jab, half insult, half bait, just waiting for the room to bite. Classic Trump trolling. I figured Crockett would snap, and he'd sit back with that smug grin, acting like he won the trolling championship. But nope, she didn't take the bait. She dismantled it. Line by line, point by point, she turned his little dig into a full-on cell phone. And that's when things got real interesting.
Another story that is originating out of Texas, and that is the effort we are seeing on the part of state Republicans to engage in redistricting. It seems pretty clear based on the reporting. If you guys want to pull up the headline from the New York Times, this is from June 9th, about the fact that the White House is where this is coming from. They have been pushing Republicans in Texas to redistrict, hoping to blunt Democratic gains. The 4 seats that Greg Abbott wants to redraw look like they belong to Al Green, Sylvester Turner, Sylvia Garcia, Mark Vesey. Is this anything other than trying to change the rules of the game halfway through the game so you can win because you can't win on the merits?
You said it real nice. They cheating. They are cheating. Say what it is, okay? Listen, if your policies are so popular, Mr. President, then trust that the American people are happy. And so you don't have to worry about the fact that the Democrats actually should have control of the House right now. The Republicans cheated in the state of North Carolina to make sure that they could get 3 pickups. And guess what? Ultimately, they ended up controlling the House by exactly 3 seats because once they ended up controlling that Supreme Court, they redistricted, and unfortunately now they have 10 Republicans that are elected from the House. And
He drops a line about leadership, something about how nobody has done it better, nobody knows it better. You know, the usual "I alone can fix it" routine. And Crockett? She fires back with the receipts, pointing out exactly where he fumbled the ball. And not only that, she wrapped it in this almost casual delivery, like she was swatting a fly. That's when I realized Trump is so used to opponents fighting on his terms.
we need to start speaking more truth if we are really going to get to the real power. And if we don't recognize the full history, then we are doomed to repeat it. And frankly, this is a guy that is trying to do everything that he can to repeat it. That is why there are so many people saying that if you wonder what you would have been doing during the civil rights movement, then the question is, what are you doing right now? Because we are literally living through a modern day civil rights fight. The fight in which there was a Texan who signed the Voting Rights Act into law because of these literacy tests and because of Jim Crow. And now, just the other day, what did he say? He wanted to get rid of mail-in ballot voting. This is a guy that wants to take us back. We knew that we had an opportunity not to go back. In fact, that was the theme of a campaign when she said, we won't go back. She knew what he wanted to do. And I am here to tell you that regardless of what he does, we are going to make sure that we are investing in sharing our history, our true history, our real stories, because there have been so many times in this country where they wanted to delete us.
Why don't more politicians just take the Crockett route? Skip the noise, skip the theatrics, and just bury him with straight-up, undeniable facts? Maybe because it takes skill, maybe because it takes confidence, or maybe because people are just too scared of the Trump machine. But Crockett? She clearly didn't care.
One thing we are going to do is we're going to block him. That's the one thing I can tell you. If you give us control of the House, we will stop some of the pain that he is inflicting. We will stop some of the idiocy, and we will actually conduct some real oversight over this administration, which is paramount, so that ultimately the American people can understand not only that Donald Trump is a failure and a fraud, but understand the people that are his accomplices that are helping him to accomplish this. We are going to shed light on all the darkness that he is bringing on the United States. And I think that that is what we all should want for good governance. No matter how you affiliate yourself, you should want somebody that is going to keep it real with you and be honest with you and transparent with you. And that is what you will get. So regardless of how much he tries to cheat, I am truly believing, just like nobody showed up for him for his little birthday parade, but the American people came out for free to let him know that there are no kings. I don't care what he tries to do. I'm truly believing that the American people are going to show him better than they can tell him.
And here's the irony that made me laugh. Trump loves branding himself as the guy who tells it like it is. But Crockett, she actually did it. She told it like it is. And it cut deeper, because it wasn't covered in glitter and exaggeration. Just plain truth, delivered with edge.
There's a lot that I would ask Pam Bondi, but I do want to go back to the first part about the president now seemingly flipping his position. I do want the American people to recognize that this is nothing more than a game by the con man, again, because he knows, like most others, I'm sure his attorneys have informed him, that the release of grand jury documentation, as it's already been laid out, this is a secret process. It is a lot more difficult to actually get that released. So he gets to play both sides of it. He gets to then blame the courts if the courts then ultimately do what courts are supposed to do, which is to kind of follow the law. So he wants to say, listen, I tried, but it's the judges that wouldn't let me, and then kind of distract. So I don't believe that he actually has any intention whatsoever of being transparent and actually providing those documents, because he could instruct them to release information that was not necessarily a part of the grand jury process, but he did not do that. So I think that that's the real game here.
And it hit me. This is what Trump fears the most. Not protesters, not rival politicians trying to match his energy, not even the endless lawsuits. What he fears is someone who doesn't play the game his way, because when you strip away the theatrics, what's left? A record full of failures, investigations, and empty slogans. I'll admit, I was shocked when I saw how fast the clip spread. Usually, it takes a while for political moments to catch fire.
Say what it is, okay? Listen, if your policies are so popular, Mr. President, then trust that the American people are happy. And so you don't have to worry about the fact that the Democrats actually should have control of the House right now. The Republicans cheated in the state of North Carolina to make sure that they could get 3 pickups. And guess what? Ultimately, they ended up controlling the House by exactly 3 seats, because once they ended up controlling that Supreme Court, they redistricted. And unfortunately, now they have 10 Republicans that are elected from the House, and they have 4 Democrats when it used to be 7-7. And when you looked at the election results, it was Donald Trump who barely won the state, but then it was Democrats that won the state on all the other statewide elected positions, which tells you it's about a 50-50 state, which means that congressionally it should have been about 50-50. So the seats were correct before. Now, because he knows that if Democrats take control, regardless of how the American people feel about the Democrats right now, one thing we are going to do is we're going to block him.
Now, here's a question I've been chewing on. Is this the turning point? Is this the moment where people finally realize you don't beat Trump by being Trump-light? Because if so, Crockett may have just handed the playbook to everyone else. But then again, let's not underestimate Trump's base. They don't care about facts, they care about the show. And Trump always puts on a show. But shows only last so long before the audience starts craving something real.
Yeah, so thank you for talking about what happened in 2021. I was listening in as you were talking to the Rev, and you mentioned the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, as well as we were fighting to get the Freedom to Vote Act passed. Ultimately, obviously, this was a decision that came down to whether or not Congress was going to do so. But at the end of the day, the story that most people don't talk about is the fact that this terrible voter suppression bill actually got a little better. Did it get good? Absolutely not. But they absolutely wanted to take away souls to the polls. There was a benefit to shining a light on what it was that they were trying to do in the dark in Texas. So unfortunately, we've seen our numbers fall now that they have these voter restrictions in place. But I do think it's important for us to have the conversation around the fact that this is bigger than Texas. This isn't just about the 5 seats in Texas. This is about a power grab. It is about basically setting the tone for what Donald Trump will try to do throughout this country so that he can suppress the voices of black and brown folk just so that he can stay in power.
Crockett didn't just obliterate Trump for the sake of winning a moment. She did it in a way that exposed the larger problem, how much space he takes up with so little substance. And that's why it landed so hard. Because whether you love him or hate him, you can't deny the pattern. And let me tell you, when someone finally holds up the mirror and says, "Here's what you actually look like," that's when the power cracks. And Crockett, she held up that mirror like it was crystal clear.
The fact that you just got done engaging in a conversation where we have a president of the United States who has no idea about the oath that he just took on January 20th tells me everything that I need to know. He didn't even have good sense enough in that same interview to say something as simple as, "Yes, I will follow the Constitution." You know, the thing that actually derived from the oath that he was supposed to take. And he supposedly took an oath, which there's a lot of people that point out that he never put his hand on the Bible, even though he acts as if he could somehow be the Pope. But nevertheless, that oath specifically says that you will defend the Constitution. So the idea that you are now taking the Constitution and, as I said at the DNC, putting it through a paper shredder is a problem. And I think that this should not be partisan. This should be right versus wrong. A lot of the things that this administration is doing, they don't have anything to do with partisanship. This is right versus wrong. And right now, they are consistently wrong.
And maybe that's the bigger story. Not just that Trump got hit, but that it came from someone who refused to play his game. Because that's the blueprint for beating him. Not louder, not nastier, just sharper. I can't wait to see how Trump responds, because you know he can't let this slide. But no matter what comeback he tries, that moment's already out there, living rent-free in the political highlight reel. So I'll leave you with this. Sometimes the biggest blows don't come from the people you expect. Sometimes it's not the heavyweight with all the noise. It's the one who steps in quietly, hits hard, and leaves the room stunned. And that's exactly what Crockett just did to Trump. If you enjoyed leaving a like and subscribing, more videos are on the screen now.